Look, watching these movies, it makes me want to box. I have no interest in fighting people. I have no interest in boxing. Look, I like my face. I paid a lot of money for my face. Okay, I have no interest
Wow.
in fighting anybody else. Okay,
Wow.
but I wouldn't mind
Wait,
training
wait,
as a
wait, wait,
boxer.
wait.
You know?
Soundstripe.
Welcome in to another episode of Blockbusters, a classic movie podcast where if you like us, you miss the days of packed movie theaters and movie stores, and this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Caleb Suggs. Joining me is one of my co-hosts, Dakota Lowry.
What's up, everybody?
And Ernie Ferguson.
You're gonna eat lightning and you're gonna crap thunder.
And this week we are doing the 1976 boxing movie, sports drama film Rocky. This was Dakota's pick, and I have had mixed feelings about this because this franchise means so much to me growing up. But as a kid, and I got one of the VHS collection one Christmas when I was a kid, and I wore movies 2 through 4 out, but 5 I never watched because 5's terrible and a stain on the franchise. But 1 I watched a few times, but it was never to me as when I was younger. It wasn't as fun as the other 3. So and as I've gotten older, I still watch 2 through 4 mainly. So I was interested to go back and watch this one and see if I had a different feel about it this time. But Ernie, I mean, you probably saw this in theaters when it came out, right?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. When I was 2 years old, I went and saw it. I got to see Mick cut Rock, in the fight. No, I think all 3 of us, we probably look at Rocky as a prequel because we've seen the other movies before this one, and so But the way I feel about this is the same way I feel about Alien and the way I feel about First Blood. It's not the same movie as the franchises, especially First Blood. Go figure, Stallone movie. But this is not. I mean, what you said that it wasn't a fun movie. I don't think Rocky was supposed to be a fun movie. Because you look at one. Let's go a little history lesson. You're talking about the mid '70s here, so you're talking about after Nixon. You're talking about energy crisis. You're talking about inflation. You're talking about a city in Philadelphia that was blue collar, poor, not a very pretty city to begin with, And so the one thing this has going for it, it's a rags to riches a movie, and maybe 2, but the rest of the movies don't have that. There is no underdog. There is no coming out of nowhere underdog in the rest of the Rocky series, because even in 2, well, he made $150,000 in the mid '70s on this one fight. People know people know the Italian Stallion now. You look at 3 and 4, he's well established, champion. So yeah, this movie is gonna be different than the others because it has a different tone and it has a different reason to be made too.
Okay. And the 4th one, he's fighting a monster Russian on steroids. I feel like there's a little bit that killed the dude that he could barely beat. So I feel like there's a little bit underdog there. But you said all 3 of us had seen the other ones before we seen this one. Dakota, I don't think that's the case. I introduced him to this franchise, but I'm pretty sure he watched the first one first, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was before we watched all the other ones, but this is a rewatch for me. Back when we watched them, I guess was that in 2021, 22? 8.
Yes.
Yeah, you're getting old.
There's no way that was 2018.
Yes, because we watched I had you watch them all before we went to see Creed 2, which came out in 2018.
But didn't we have them? Didn't they release like Rocky 4 back in theaters when there wasn't a lot of movies coming out during COVID?
Okay, no, wait, you're right. You're right. You're right. Yeah, okay, so 2020 then. So
Yeah.
you didn't watch them before we saw Creed 2. You just watched them.
Right. Yeah, I'd
We
seen
went to
Creed
see
1 and
Rocky
2.
3
Yeah.
and Rocky 4 in theaters during COVID because we were just looking for something to get out of the house. And I told you had to watch the first one by yourself.
And I did, which I had sat down when I was younger. I think when I was in college and tried to watch it, and I don't know the first part of this movie is just kind of slow for me. And the first time I sat down and tried to watch it, I really couldn't get into it, and I couldn't understand why everybody loved the franchise so much. You know, which of course at this time the first 30 minutes of Rocky was the only thing that I had seen, and it just it started kind of slow, and it didn't really catch my attention all that quickly. You know, and but whenever we went back and watched it, or when I went back and watched it when we were going to go watch those in theaters, uh, I did. That was the point that I was like, okay, well, in order to understand the rest of the franchise, I need to sit down and watch it, and then that's when I really, once you got past about the first 30 minutes, really kind of halfway into the movie is when it really caught my attention, and it really then kind of picked up for me.
But the thing about it, the reason that Rocky caught on so much, because again, you're talking about, I mean, a relatively unknown actor who wrote this movie himself. You got to see what loser that Rocky Balboa was. Because everybody knows Rocky. Everybody has seen the statue. If you haven't watched the movies, you know the name Rocky Balboa, but
Mhm.
you don't think of him. You think of him defeating communism or getting body slammed by Hulk Hogan or punching or getting a fight with Mr. T. You know, I mean, but this movie is. I mean, is there anybody likable or that? I mean, Paulie Paulie's got to be the single worst character in a movie. I mean, there's zero redeeming value of Paulie at all, And Rocky himself, I mean, he's a lifelong boxer that's just a journeyman that's not very good. He's not a very good collector. He doesn't know how to read very well. He can't remember his locker combination. It's just and you just are surrounded. I mean, the most interesting character is Apollo Creed when he pops up. I mean, Adrian is, but that's the tone of the movie, though. That's why this movie is not an action movie. That's the whole entire thing of this is different than the franchise. Just like again, the perfect example is Rambo. Rambo is not like First Blood is not like any of the other Rambo movies. And Rocky is that introductory story to this franchise. And and I would say that Rocky Balboa is not the same in 2 through whatever compared to what he is here too.
Yeah, I think this movie did a good job. And one thing that I noticed, especially when he was like at fighting and things like that, there's a, which I don't know. Obviously, I don't know a lot about boxing, but especially in the beginning, that I noticed that he's just he's not trained, and I think they do a good job of showing that. Which I don't know how well Sylvester Stallone was trained for this movie, but uh, that's kind of what I picked up on was his lack of training and his uh amateurism. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, he's rough around the edges, and that's kind of what goes back to what you hear Mick talk to him about while he sees all this talent that he's wasted. Because it's one of those things where you can't understand why Mickey is always angry all the time at Rocky, but then whenever they have that big speech about he had this talent, but he's just been sitting there wasting it this whole entire time. That's I mean Rocky's claim to fame is that he's got a tough skull. That's it. I mean, he can take a punch, he can take a licking and keep on ticking, you know. But again, this movie, that's the problem. I go into this movie. I think all three of us go into this movie. This is a boxing movie. No, it's not a boxing movie. I mean, if you don't have the intro, which by the way, you start off with the fight, and then the music with credits, that's choice. But I mean, it's not a boxing movie. It just has boxing in it. The rest of the Rockies are boxing movies. Well, Rocky 2 is a little slow. It's not as slow to get to the boxing, but I mean, this movie is purposely slow, I think, in showing Rocky and just how much of an underdog he is, until the training montage happens. And then all of a sudden you go from driving 15 miles an hour to like, now here we go, the pedals down. And that's one of those things that I mean, this movie won the Academy Award for Best Picture. I mean, it defeated 3 heavyweight movies. It defeated Network, All the President's Men, and Taxi Driver. There's no way this movie should have done that. But it is the lightning in the bottle, which is, here is an underdog, and this is an underdog story, and you see what a crappy life he had and how he was, but yet here he goes toe to toe. And I'll be honest with you, I know the movie, I've seen the movie, but when I'm watching the movie, I didn't pay attention to whether he won or lost. I wasn't. I was listening to Adrian yell Rocky and Rocky yelling for Adrian. I wasn't even listening to the scorecard behind. So that's one of those things that should tell you that that's what the movie's about. The movie was about, Rocky finishing the fight, and it's about moving himself up, in the pedestal of life. Because I mean, y'all may have been listening for the fight winner or whatever, but I don't even recall what it. I don't even know the decision what it was. I mean, I know Apollo ends up winning, but I don't know anything more than that.
He wins 2-1 on the decision card.
Which
they also said there's not going to be a rematch, and then immediately in the next movie he's calling for a rematch.
That was funny. both of them saying no rematch. Both of them, you're not getting a rematch. I don't want a rematch. I thought that was funny too.
Well, Rocky is a 1976 American independent sports drama film directed by John G. Avildsen and written by and starring Sylvester Stallone. It is the first installment in the Rocky franchise and also stars Talia Shire, Burt Young, Carl Weathers, and Burgess Meredith. In the film, Rocky Balboa, a poor small-time club fighter and loan shark debt collector from Philadelphia, gets an unlikely shot at the World Heavyweight Championship held by Apollo Creed. The movie was released on November 20th, 1976 in New York, and December 3rd, 1976 to the rest of the United States. It grossed $225 million on a budget of $1.1 million, and if I'm not mistaken, the Rotten Tomatoes score is 83%? I think that's your job. You're supposed to have it up.
Then we wouldn't be doing what we normally do. Yeah, 93. Popcorn meters are 69. So again, the fans didn't like it as much as the critics. I mean, Roger Ebert gave this 4 stars out of 4. So I mean,
I tend to agree with the critics because, to quote Ernie Ferguson, I feel like this movie is definitely more cinema than it is a movie, but that doesn't necessarily make it better. And I can see in 1976 where this would be something the American people gravitated to, because like you said, Ernie, it was a time with the energy crisis and everything else, so people were looking for that underdog story. But I think when you're watching in 2025, and we certainly, I mean, part of what we do when we're watching the movies and ranking them is we're looking if they hold up, and this movie feels incredibly dated. However many years later that is, 50 years, almost 50 years later.
Yeah, but again, and that's one of the things that, we have talked about this in the past of rating the movie of what it means or the cinema of the movie versus the enjoyment of the film. Because there are parts of the movie that I really enjoyed, and Dakota said it earlier. I mean, the first, if it doesn't have that opening fight against Spider, and you just go into Rocky walking down the street, oh, click, but they dangle the carrot out in front of you. Oh, okay, man, he got headbutted and everything like that. There is a fight coming. You know, we don't expect to go an hour and a half before we get to the fight stuff, but you know that's but it does, you know, it is that this is cinema. I mean, it is cinema. But then again, and that's one of those things in my mind when I'm ranking this is, but how much did I actually enjoy it? I appreciate it, and I appreciated what it did. I mean, just the run up the museum stairs is, I mean, that's is how many more iconic shots in movies do you have, you know, in the last 50 years like that? So I mean, yeah, so it is tough to kind of judge that, but sometimes I don't have a problem with, this is not a problem for it being dated to me. There are some things, like there's a lot of the, well, 10 things I hate about you. It is very dated, late 90s, and that's part of the movie, but it's also kind of things that made me go, eh. Whereas this, the dating it of the 70s, I think plays into the gloom and doom of Rocky, and just the you know, how much of a little life that he had, you know. So I think it actually plays into it. Um, you know, I'm trying not to mention Dakota's movie that he brought up. That's a dated movie also. But it'll be like Voldemort. It'll be the name, the movie that will not be named.
Oh no, I didn't really. I think I can look past the dating a lot, you know, just or how dated it is. Um, I mean, at this point, it is a 50-year-old movie, you know, or it's a
That's crazy.
49. It's a 49-year-old movie, you
That's
know,
old.
this year, and
Remind me, Ernie, again. How old are you?
I'm 51. That's why I said it's old. I feel it. I feel like Rocky sometimes.
but it never really. I guess that doesn't really bother me as much with this. It's just the I think more than now that I even think about it, with knowing as little of as small of a budget that it did have, you know, I think they were kind of trying to do the best with what they had, you know, and honestly, I think really Sylvester Stallone wrote this and didn't really think it would have as much popularity or be as big of a hit as it was. You know,
Well,
I don't think.
I don't
the
know
whole
about that
story with this, the whole story
because
behind the script is, mm,
So I didn't read anything about the script.
he had someone offered to buy the script from him, but they weren't going to let him star in it, and he was adamant that he had to star in the movie.
he sold
So
it. So he sold it first to United Artists or ABC or something like that. All right. And they were going to make a television series, but they started doing a bunch of changes to it. So he started his first movie he starred in with was with Henry Winkler. Well, at this point in time in Henry Winkler's career, he's the Fonz, and he throws a heck of a lot weight at ABC, which Happy Days was on, the Fonz was on, and he was able to purchase that back at cost and give it back to Stallone. And again, the I think United Artists wanted somebody other than Stallone to star in it, but Stallone basically said, "No, this is my script. I'm going to act it." And you talk about, I mean, and that's another thing that's amazing about this. I mean, writes it and he stars in it, and it wins an Academy Award. And he only has one movie under his belt at this point in time. That's nuts. That is absolutely crazy that happens. And you know, there's some people that say that, you know, what would have happened if he didn't go down the Rambo role and would have been just a writer actor. I mean, he could have pulled it off because I mean, he's shown it's raw in Rocky. You see it some in Rambo also. He's got some acting chops, you know, which if before doing this, if I ever thought I'd say that, I would have slapped myself because I was like, nah, Stallone doesn't do that. He's. I mean,
He
the
has
only
a character that he plays.
yeah, only the Russian was roided up in Rocky Four. Wink, wink. So you know, that was the crazy thing about the whole entire script thing. You know, was that, I mean, he fought for it, and it was his baby.
Well, in 1975, heavyweight boxing world champion Apollo Creed plans to hold a title bout in Philadelphia during the upcoming United States bicentennial. However, he is informed 5 weeks from the fight date that his scheduled opponent is unable to compete due to injured hand, and that all other potential replacements are either booked up or unable to get into shape in time. Having already invested heavily into the fight, Creed decides to give a local contender a chance to challenge him. I'm going to go ahead and read the second paragraph because obviously that's not the start of the movie. So Creed selects Rocky Balboa, an Italian-American journeyman southpaw boxer who fights primarily in small gyms and works as a collector for a mafia loan shark. On the basis of his nickname, the Italian Stallion, Rocky fights in a local Philadelphia fight club, and he won his last fight with Spider Rico. Meets with promoter George Jurgens, who tells him Creed has selected Rocky to fight him for the World Heavyweight Championship. Reluctant at first, Rocky eventually agrees to the fight, which will pay him $150,000. Rocky undergoes several weeks of unorthodox training, such as using sides of beef as punching bags. So that's like the first 45 minutes to an hour of the movie that we just went through in 2 paragraphs right there. And it didn't even cover, so not the best synopsis. I've seen better, but
It jumps around.
But as you mentioned before, it opens up in that club bar fight scene or whatever you want to call it. With him fighting Spider Rico and just if you want a good glimpse of, I guess, like you mentioned, the blue collar, just kind of filth that Philadelphia was at the time. That opening scene paints it pretty well.
You know what it reminded me of, and you would appreciate this. And I don't know how much of a wrestling fan that Dakota is, but this truly reminds me of Bingo Hall Wrestling. You got some woman yelling there a bum and all this other kind of stuff. And then when you get done, oh, yeah, here's your money for the fight. But, first, there's a towel fee, there's a washroom fee, there's a tax fee, there's a this fee. So here you go. Here's the money. But that's exactly what it kind of looked like, was like the minor leagues of wrestling that, well, I guess one of the fundamental questions about this movie is, why be a boxer? I mean, why? Because here he is. He's getting it. I mean, the dude headbutts him, and why does it take a headbutt before he just starts unleashing a butt whipping on him? But, and that's kind of what another thing the movie does. In the beginning, why does he box? Well, go to the end of the movie. The end of the movie, his life is changed, and all the adulation in the crowd and all that other kind of stuff. Now, did he have to sacrifice half his brain, his nose, and his eye getting cut? Yeah, but some people love that.
Well, sorry, I didn't answer your question. I was reading Dakota's chat where he said there was a spider he had to kill. I hope you got that spider.
The spider's dead.
Which is perfect.
Did you go all Rocky on that spider?
I'm about to say, yeah, that's Rocky fought Spider first match. So there you go.
And then, not only you fight him, he has him on the ground, and he's like, that's always one of my favorite parts of that. He's like wailing on him on the ground. I'm like, all right, this is definitely barroom boxing or whatever. But yeah, I mean, he says it throughout the movie, because Adrian asked him multiple times, why does he fight? And the first time he says, because I can't sing your bands. But I mean, the real reason, and he talked about his dad, after saying something about you don't have the brains or whatever, so you got better use your body. I mean, it's just, that's just kind of what he is. He views himself as a fighter, and I think it's not just a fighter in the ring, but a fighter in life and stuff like that. And I don't mean physically fighting, although he is capable of doing that, but I just kind of mean fighting through life. And so, I guess he finds a solace in the ring.
Which that goes back to, like, what Mick said to him also. Just the opposite of what his dad said. Mick was mad at him because he was just a leg breaker. That's what, I mean, he could have been a fighter, but he chose to be a leg breaker. Not a very good leg breaker because he wouldn't break thumbs, but so here you got, again, this is one of those things where I think the writing of this movie is so underrated by a lot of people because it's not Rocky IV, but here he is. There is that thing that of what he talks about his dad's expectation because he wasn't smart, because he needed to learn he needed help spelling Del Rio, and all the way to when he gets to Mick, and Mick is basically blasting him for being just a leg breaker.
But I do think it's that that kind of balance that he has to find between, like I think Mick saw his potential. Mick saw what he could have been, but he also is thinking about the PR side of it. That if you have a boxer who's fighting on TV or fighting in like in actual rings and stuff like that, and not just in a back alley somewhere, then you can't have him go around and being a loan shark and breaking legs for the local gangster. Like and I don't think Rocky viewed himself as anything more than that, and that's why he did it. But and I think Mick should have sat down and talked to him about that way before, he ever even got as far as he did.
Well, I mean, that goes kind of one of the emotional scenes, like when Rocky's yelling at Mick, like, "Where were you 10 years ago?" You
Yeah.
know, and that kind of goes, that also goes to like we know what Paulie's interest in Rocky was. Now all of a sudden Mick has interest in Rocky. Is it to make Rocky better, or is he running a grift also, trying to make money off of Rocky?
No, he is absolutely trying to build his own name.
100%.
Are you telling me he kicked him out of his own locker at the gym that he was paying for, and then as soon as he picks up a fight, he wants to come around and start talking? No, Mick is absolutely in this for the money for himself. Because he knows if he gets a heavyweight champion in his gym now, he's just thinking about what he's going to be doing afterwards and all the people who want to join, how much money he's going to make.
Well, first off, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I don't. At the same time, I don't think it's particularly for the money. I think it's just particularly for when he comes to Rocky House, and this is obviously getting a little bit ahead, but when he comes to Rocky's house, it kind of gives a speech about him, about his fighting days and everything. I think it's just more of him wanting to be that trainer for that guy that gets that shot. I don't really think necessarily he's want it for the money. He just wants to be there for the main event and be there for the heavyweight championship because he kind of missed out on that when he was the boxer. So he wants to have his guy. And but you're right. I mean, he definitely. I mean, and you can paint it whatever you want, but as soon as he sees on TV that Rocky's going to fight Apollo Creed, he comes straight to his door. But to go back through some of this movie, and we got a lot to cover because this first two paragraphs just went through like an hour of the movie. So I mean, after the opening boxing scene, we see him go through, walking through the streets of Philadelphia and go into his apartment with his turtles. Which, by the way, I don't know now, but at least until recently, he still had those turtles, if I'm not mistaken.
As of I think 2021, he still had the turtles.
Yeah. And then we meet, we start meeting other characters. We meet Adrian, who works in the pet shop, and we meet Polly, who, like Ernie said, just doesn't have a lot of redeeming qualities. And unfortunately, it doesn't get better. Polly is always looking for a handout, and it's that way throughout the entire franchise. It never changes.
Which leads to Rocky V, thanks to Polly.
Yes, pretty much. But I think part of the reason that I did not like this movie as a kid, and it's still rough. Him and his relationship with Adrian early on, like their first date and stuff. It's cringy, and I get why it's cringy. It's part of the movie. Well, I mean, just their whole date, and then going back to the part. I mean, it's just all cringy to me, and you just get that. And like I get it's part of the character because part of the movie because Adrian is obviously a shy, very shy type of girl, and he is, just an idiot. So, I mean, it's part of they're kind of coming together. So I get, but it's still hard to watch, at least for me.
Well, I mean, I didn't have an issue with all of that. Yes, it's not particularly fun to watch. It's kind of like watching me at school, watching middle school relationships try to happen. It is cringy, but the whole entire apartment scene was like, okay, this is not quite P. Diddy stuff, but it kind of feels like it. I'm not. I mean, I'm going to kiss you, but you don't have to kiss me back. Oh, okay, Rock. That's nice. But and the way but going back to the way she acts. Well, again, look at how Paulie was describing her to her face. I mean, you're talking about. I mean, she didn't have any. I think
she plays the character well.
Yes,
for what the character's supposed to be.
which also going back through this movie, who was the one person that had his back from the get-go. She was the one person that had even when he'd lost his confidence or or gained some reality, she was there, and she was his confidence, which is as big of ironic statement as anything for someone that has zero confidence like she did. But yeah, that whole entire date, though, I did think it was funny though. The Zamboni driver counting the minutes down that they that they had.
I'm just,
Hey,
I'm just like he's sitting there running on the ice. He does like one slip, like one time to but like, come on, you're not just gonna run on the ice like that. Whatever. I don't know. Maybe Dakota has a different opinion. Maybe you can't. I'm not. I don't spend that much time on the ice. I don't like ice skating. But I doubt that you're gonna be running like that on the ice.
No, I agree. It was awkward. Yeah, I think Ferg, you're a little desensitized to it because you do see it in middle schools every day, but it was for sure.
oh yeah,
It was
no,
cringy.
but that's like, and that goes back to Polly. I mean, he's mad at her. Well, he doesn't tell her that she's coming, that Rocky's coming, and he gets mad at her, and he wastes an entire turkey. It's Thanksgiving, which is just Thursday for Rocky, but Polly is just sitting there screaming at her, and then later on, I'm sorry, Rocky should have beat Polly to a pulp multiple times in this movie. If he truly loved Adrian and he had the feelings he had for Adrian, Paulie should have been hanging up like the sides of beef.
But do you not think that Polly had to play that part in Rocky's life?
I
Because
mean,
Rocky needed somebody there to build his patience, if that makes sense. Because man, if Rocky's just going to, don't get me wrong, completely justified every time he should have, just beat the crap out of Polly. I completely agree, 100% understand it. But if Rocky's going to let somebody get under his skin like that, if Rocky's able to do that, then what's going to happen in the ring when
well,
tensions are already high?
well, I mean, he got headbutted, and you saw what's going to happen in the ring. But again, it's a grift by Paulie, because one of two things by Paulie. I mean, the reason that Paulie's trying to pimp out his sister is because he wants Rocky to put a good word in with Gazzo, so he can be a collector. So again, that goes back to my whole entire thing. There ain't nothing about Paulie that's good. I mean, even pimping out the robe that Rocky had. I mean, Rocky got to wear it, but Paulie's the one that got the money.
Polly got $3,000 out of it, and he
Bought
still
it.
had to wear an ad. Yeah.
Let's talk about Carl Weathers, Apollo
Oof.
Creed,
Mm.
because, like you said, I mean, just probably one of the best characters in the movie. It's a shame he's
Hmm.
not in the movie more, and it's honestly, it's a shame he's not in the second movie more. We finally get to see him in the third movie, like really, really. But he plays this part so well, and one thing I do like about this movie is it reminds me, like how good Apollo Creed was supposed to be. And I remember when the first Creed movie came out, so that was probably 10 years ago. And I remember telling my dad about it, and I was like, yeah, they really built it up to, Apollo Creed was like the greatest that ever lived. I think that's something that you forget with the later Rocky movies, especially the fourth one, where, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the fourth one, he dies.
What?
So, and I think that's a lot of people's lasting memory is him dying, and then in that one, and then obviously Rocky later on, Drago to avenge him. But he was really built. He's like even probably better than Muhammad Ali. I mean, he's undefeated in like what 41 fights, and he had never been knocked down and never been taken the distance. I mean, he was like they built him up to be the greatest challenge that you could possibly face, and he was also a fantastic character. I mean, just the way that he talked and everything. He was, like I said, a shame that he wasn't in it more.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell that they based this off Muhammad Ali, because that's one thing that
Without the
Stallone.
rhyming.
Yeah, I mean, Stallone wrote this basically about if I had to fight Muhammad Ali. He wrote this in 3 days, and that's what the whole entire character is based off of. But again, I mean, Carl Weathers is just incredible, and to me, also a movie in the '70s where you have the rich, powerful boxer being black, and being the one that could formulate sentences. I mean, Rocky's a caveman. Everybody else is a caveman, but here you have, be a thinker, not a stinker. He was a thinking man. He was a businessman. I mean, the whole idea of the fight, because like you said about his boxing prowess, everybody looked like they were dodging him. They didn't want to fight him because again, he had stone hands, you know. But I mean, and so he has the opportunity of a fight that's going down the drain, and it's his brainchild about getting an Italian in. Giving a no-name Italian guy a chance at the title, that is a business decision. That's if you're going to just throw a dead body out there for him to fight, you might as well make it a hometown boy that has the certain ethnicity that is prevalent in Pennsylvania. In Philadelphia. Just the whole entire. His idea of a novelty fight. It's incredible business savvy. But as what's his fatal flaw is he doesn't take the fight seriously. He almost got beat this match, and it got him killed in Rocky IV. So he better prepare for fights.
Which and I think they showed that later on in the whole training montage with when he's sitting there, behind the desk and talking and saying, well, oh, I'm paying $300 for this advertisement. We'll move it up to $450. Like do these radio programs, do this, and I really think the character is very well written in my opinion. But Carl Weathers, man, he just in every aspect, I think he hit the nail on the head. Even at the end of the movie when he was in the ring, just his lead up and his walkout. And I know we'll get I guess I'll wait till we get to that part of the movie when we talk about it. But he just
let's just go with it.
Yeah, this whole synopsis is all over the place.
It really is.
So, but,
screw the synopsis. Let's just go.
You mentioned him going over the advertising, then you have Duke in the background who's watching Rocky train on TV, and he's like, "Hey, you should watch this guy. I think he means business." And Duke was another character he's not in it enough throughout the series. He's in it the most in the fourth one.
But he didn't even have he didn't even have a name in this movie.
Oh, did he not?
No,
I didn't even pay attention to that. I guess I just know him.
No, that's his name becomes Duke, yeah, but he doesn't even have a name. But he was great. And boy, I don't want to ever deal with a southpaw because there's so much southpaw, lore, from good Lord, Rocky boring Adrian to tears about the southpaw and the definition of a southpaw and all that other kind of stuff, to Duke just being like, man, he didn't like the fact that he didn't want him to face Rocky because Rocky was a southpaw. I thought that was good also.
Didn't they make a whole movie based on that premise? Isn't the name of the movie Southpaw?
There's a movie called Southpaw. I think is that the one that stars? I get all boxing movies mixed up. I don't think it's the one that stars Christian Bale. But anyways,
I don't think it is.
Rocky is later approached by Mickey Goldmill, a former bantamweight fighter turned trainer whose gym Rocky frequents, about further training. Rocky is not willing initially, as Mickey has not shown much interest in helping him before and saw him as a waste of talent, but eventually Rocky accepts the offer. So we kind of already touched on this, but we get this confrontation kind of between Rocky and Mickey, where and like I said earlier, I think obviously Mickey is trying to hone in on his success because he didn't care until he got this fight with the heavyweight champion of the world. But I think at the same time, I think there was some true feelings that, okay, now you do really need this training, and he really does. By the way, Rocky doesn't actually get trained as a boxer until the third movie, which is pretty funny when you think about Mickey.
It's not Apollo. Yeah, Apollo's the one that actually trains him,
which is pretty funny. But hearing everything that Rocky gets off his chest, the crazy part, I think the most impactful part of it is when he's like yelling at the door and Mickey's like walking down the steps, and he's not there anymore, but he's still just got so much he's got to get off his chest. And I believe it. I think look, man, you've been going to this dude's gym for 10 years and he hasn't shown you anything, and now here he comes to help you with the heavyweight champ. Rocky knows that he needs him, but he's got a lot he's got to get off his chest first.
But well, in Mickey's defense, Rocky's been there how long, and how much has Rocky shown Mickey? That's kind of what Mick was coming at, But here you go again. Here is the chops that Sylvester Stallone has, because in Rambo or First Blood, the same thing when he was in the police station and he had this emotional breakdown scene. That's a very powerful scene that you don't see Stallone go to very often, But he's got it in there, and it was good. And what I really liked about the end of that scene was him chasing Mickey down, and we don't know what he said to Mickey because it was so far off screen, But you see him have his arm around Mickey and talk to Mickey, and I thought that was good because they could have easily had Rocky go out there and apologize and all that, and us hear it, But sometimes the imagination is the best part of being in the audience, and I thought they did a good job with that because you just had this emotional blow up between the two, and I think kind of what Dakota was talking about, Mickey's chance to be in the limelight. You saw that just kind of go out of his eyes, and so he just kind of decided that, okay, well, it's over with. So again, I like how that went. I like how it kind of finished, but and that kind of has that conflict with Rocky too. Is he knows he's a bum. He thinks he's a bum, but he also thinks he can possibly rise above it at this point of the movie, that he can rise above being a bum.
Well, even when he took the fight, though, did he literally look at the guy and say, "Yeah, no, I don't want to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I'm this guy's way out of my league."
He's self-aware, he is definitely self-aware
Yeah.
of what he is, so that was the interesting thing too. And that little scene I thought was kind of the cool thing was about how he kept the business card of the promoter, because he just wanted to remember it, because he didn't think he'd ever be there again.
I mean, but again, it goes back to just kind of building up Apollo and everything, and you get it. I don't know if this is before he gets the fight. I think it's before he gets the fight, when he's in the bar and they're watching Apollo on the TV and they're talking, and the dude calls him I don't call him a clown, or I can't remember what he was. And he's like, "That's the heavyweight champion of the world. Like, nobody can stand up to him." So I mean, yeah, Rocky knows exactly what the challenge that he faces is. Well, Rocky begins to build a romantic relationship with Adrienne Panino, a shy woman who works. This is like literally everything we just covered. A shy woman who is working part-time at the J&M Tropical Fish Pet Store. Adrian's brother and Rocky's best friend, Polly, helps Rocky get a date with his sister and offers to work as a cornerman with him for the fight, an offer Rocky turns down. Polly becomes jealous of Rocky's success, but Rocky placates him by agreeing to advertise the meatpacking business where Polly works for sponsorship as part of the upcoming fight, and both of them reconcile. Rocky trains extensively for the championship fight, while Apollo is unconcerned about the match and puts more effort into promotion than training. The night before the match, Rocky visits the Spectrum and begins to lose confidence. He confesses to Adrian that he does not believe he can win, but strives to go the distance against Creed, which no other fighter has done, to prove himself to everyone. So half of that was... This is the weirdest synopsis I've ever read in my life.
It's all over the place. Yeah.
But the Spectrum part, and maybe this is jumping a little ahead, but I feel like this is a big part of the movie. First off, it always makes me laugh when he goes there and he's like, "The poster's wrong." And you can tell the dude is like, "Bro, nobody knows who you are." Like, they don't care.
Well, another part of the business is that was a production mistake. And so to explain the production mistake, that's why they have Stallone say that, because it was a screw up on it wasn't done on purpose. So they had to explain why the trunks were screwed up, but it works perfectly because it makes sense. You got this schlub over here. We don't know what he's wearing, but yeah, that was a production mistake.
But you see him, and I mean, look, you're an unknown boxer that's been fighting in bars, and you're about to take on the heavyweight champion of the world. I would imagine you would have a few butterflies, but to see him kind of go through the spectrum and then to go back to Adrian and just go through his whole speech, and then going the distance. I mean, I think a lot of people are people that haven't seen Rocky are like, oh, he's got to win, right? And I feel like that, especially like if you made this movie in the modern day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to win, right? That's what we do. That's what we do nowadays is movies. But this whole thing about the movie is just going the distance, just proving that I belong, that I'm not a nobody, that I'm not a bum. Which, by the way, how many times is bum mentioned in not this movie, but the franchise? It has to be more than any other.
As much as Yo.
Yo, but I think a lot of people, if they haven't seen this movie, or if, like I said, if it was made today, I mean, you would expect him to win, but just going that distance is that's the goal here. And I think that's something that is something cool that I think you can take away from this movie because, like I said, if you made it today, you're not going to get that. I mean, it's got to be you got to win, right?
Yeah, that's why you get Rocky 2, because they can't just have Rocky not win, you know. But when we talk about the fight, the whole part of this movie is about Rocky changing, about Rocky growing, you know. And there's no better way to show that than in the training. The morning after this is what I like. This is where it really starts to get up. He accepts the fight. What does he do? He gets up extra early, cracks those eggs, and just downs those raw eggs.
Dribble all over his chest, and
I'm like nasty. But then he goes out and he makes the run. So they start this run in the dark, and he has a hard time getting up those stairs. He's struggling. But then they go. But then we push on. We show we get the hitting the sides of beef scenes. And him just wearing those out. You get him the exercise where he's doing one-handed push-ups, one-arm push-ups, just getting hit with a medicine ball. You have the flying higher or whatever. I can't remember the name of the song is, but the Rocky song pumping, and you're going, heck yeah. And then you get finally he's running again, but it's in daylight again. A great cinematic move, and he's hauling butt up there. And you talk about this is a fictional character that has a real life statue at a real life museum in Philadelphia. I mean, that's seriously impactful. I mean, you think about something. I mean, what other fictional character like that actually is a draw for some cities? And that's what I like about the journey with Rocky, is that you see this build up, you see the build up, and it truly leads to the change that you see in Rocky. Because he was a bum. And he was a loser. I mean, again, he couldn't box right. He couldn't do his job right, which was collecting. He was just kind of a massive screw up, along with Paulie, along with Mickey, along with Adrian. You know, so I mean, but that's why I think people are gravitating to this movie as being a great movie, because of the growth that you see in Rocky. But that kind of leads us to that one scene, where he is in the spectrum and he's just like, and he's overwhelmed, and you're like, no, man, you can't do this. You got to keep on going and have confidence in yourself.
Yeah, I think the training montage. uh, I think that's the staple of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's when people think of Rocky, they don't. I don't necessarily think they remember the fight at the end. I don't think they remember the whole, the first hour of this movie. This training montage where he's going through this. I think this part influenced more movies than anything else. Because I mean, how many movies now do you see? How many sports movies? How many, boxing movies? How many, wrestling movies or whatever it is? How many you see all these movies now that have that training montage in it? And I don't know of any movies before this that really had that. That really sold it. And I think that's where the biggest influence that this movie had on this genre comes from, is in this Rocky training montage. And I mean, you hear it all over you hear it a lot of times when people are talking about other movies and everything. Well, they went through the Rocky training montage. They went through you know, like they had their whole Rocky experience, and I think that is the influence that this part of the movie had on the genre and movies in general, apart from anything else in this movie.
I can remember how many people after this movie and after the Rocky movies go out on the road and run and pretend that they're Rocky, swinging and throwing these punches and stuff like that. I don't know anybody on this podcast that ever did something stupid like that when they were younger.
I did.
I did too. My people literally called my parents and told me, I saw Ernie on the road. He was so cute doing the Rocky stuff. I'm like, sitting there, here's this pudgy kid just running around, acting like he was Rocky, and I was more like Polly, than anything else.
Is that what I need to do to make my runs faster? Is start swinging my fist like Rocky?
There you go.
In everyday conversations, that's what sold Adrian right there. Was the little jabs while he's flirting with her. That's what got it right there.
I think y'all understand the impact these movies made on me when I was a kid. Because of this movie, I had boxing gloves, I had a mouthpiece, I had Rocky's championship belt, my dad had punching pads so I could punch him. I mean, I had the whole 9 yards.
Look, watching these movies, it makes me want to box. I have no interest in fighting people. I have no interest in boxing. Look, I like my face. I paid a lot of money for my face, okay? I have no interest in fighting anybody else, okay?
Wow.
But I wouldn't mind training as a boxer.
Wait, what did you, other than like teeth, what did you pay for on your face?
I had jaw surgery. I had braces 3 different times, and I had a $14,000 jaw surgery. I've had LASIK done.
So you don't want to be cut then, huh?
No, absolutely not. Like that, there's a lot of money that went into my face over the years. Okay, after 3 different sets of braces, a full jaw surgery, LASIK, and a nose job because of all this. No, I do not want to get punched in the face. Okay,
fair enough.
But it does inspire me, make me want to go out there and train like a boxer, I guess, and go through the whole punches and everything else. I don't know.
See, Thunderlips on Rocky 3 makes me want to be a wrestler. That would be more my leaning towards.
Seeing him fight Drago in Rocky 4 made me want to be a trainer. I don't want to.
Which one? One that's pumping roids?
Yeah. But on New Year's Day, the fight is held with Creed making a dramatic entrance dressed as George Washington and then Uncle Sam. Taking advantage of his overconfidence, Rocky knocks him down in the first round, the first time Creed has ever been knocked down. Humbled and worried, Creed takes Rocky more seriously for the rest of the fight, though his ego never fully fades. The fight goes on for the full 15 rounds with both combatants sustaining various injuries. Rocky with hits to the head and swollen eyes requires his right eyelid to be cut to restore his vision, while Apollo, with eternal bleeding and a broken rib, struggles to breathe. As the fight concludes, Creed's superior skill is countered by Rocky's apparently unlimited ability to absorb punches and his dogged refusal to go down.
Amen to that.
As the final bell sounds, both fighters promise each other there will be no rematch. Here's how stupid I was as a kid. I would watch this, and that first time he knocks Creed down, I would always be so mad because I'd be like, if you just went back to your corner, he would have got to 10 because he got to 8. He counted to 8. So I'm like, oh, you threw it. You could have won it in the first round. So that's how stupid I was as a
kid. It was a beautiful boxing match. I liked it because, again, you saw early on in the first round how unsuccessful Rocky was swinging high and trying to knock him out. That wasn't his game. I mean, he did knock him down with that one punch, but that wasn't his game. That's why he kept on. That's why he got his nose broke. Which again, nose broke in round 1, and you keep on going. Again, Rocky is oblivious to any type of pain, obviously. But
it's a callback to earlier in the movie too, because they talked about how he never got his nose broke, and Mickey's like, you should be thankful for that. And then the first round, he gets his nose broke.
But and then. As we go, the body, the best thing that I thought about was when Apollo got that rib broke and you saw Carl Weathers. He dropped that arm and he was fighting like he was protecting that, and I like that the whole entire time that you got that. Because again, we all think about, knockouts, going to the head. We don't think about body knockouts, because it's not the sexy type of knockout as, just clubbing somebody in the noggin, but that is Rocky. Rocky's gonna he's got metal in his skull, and he's gonna get pummeled. His face is going to look like chop suey, but your body is going to feel it because he's going to wear your body out. And I mean, it was really good. I mean, it was a good fight. I enjoyed it. It's a good movie fight. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Let me tell you, I think this scene right here is where Carl Weathers shines.
Hmm.
From his entrance and, riling up the crowd and, building everybody up with the whole George Washington bit and throwing the dollars out and everything. And then when he finally gets in there and doing the whole, the I want you from, the whole, which why they had to explain the whole World War II thing, I don't really understand, but, man, his facial expressions throughout this entire fight, when he does get knocked out and he gets up and you see the surprise on his face. When in round 14 when he knocks Rocky down and then he gets back up and the genuine like disbelief that you see on his face that hey, this this rookie is still standing. Carl Weathers, I think his acting really shows throughout this entire scene, and I think he's what sold it in this.
Mm.
I think he is what makes this fight so good, because at a certain point, Rocky's just standing up there and barely holding his arms up, and Carl Weathers is selling it the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that look on Creed's face when Rocky gets up is probably my favorite part of the entire movie. I love that scene. But Ernie, to go back to what you're saying, you talked about how much you enjoyed the boxing action in this fight. See, we're going back to, we're looking at this movie 50 years later, and if it holds up, this boxing action it doesn't touch boxing action you get in the later movies, especially not when you get in the Creed movies. But I mean,
well,
you got, but again, you got to take it in the movie itself. See, again, you're comparing it to all these different boxing, where boxing has gone from the very beginning to the very end. We have built this fight up, and it doesn't give us a lot of boxing either. I mean, it gives us first round, second round, I think 14th and 15th round. So it's not like it doesn't give you a lot. But again, I like it just because it is the crescendo. It is, it's not going to give me Rocky 4 where they stop fighting each other kind of junk, stuff like that.
Watch your mouth when you're talking about Rocky 4.
Hey, overrated, but that's neither here nor there.
We can fight right now. I will come through this computer screen.
I have a hard head, so
Alabama versus Texas. Let's go.
Neither one of our bodies can take body shots. I can tell you that right now.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I got a lot of cushion on my belly. I can take.
I got cushion
shots
too, but I mean, muscle protects those vital organs better than this blubber I got hanging on here too.
You want to talk about how much they speed through this? That last round, a boxing round is 3 minutes long. I timed it. That last round lasts 58 seconds. If you thought it went by really quickly,
but I don't have a problem with that though. Again, that to me, it's better. It's almost it didn't give me not enough boxing, in this match. It didn't go too fast, but there's sometimes where you just, okay, it's like a wrestling match. I'll use wrestling match again. All right. Okay. How many false finishes are you going to give me over and over and over again to where I'm like, okay, I'm bored. Here is just, let's slug each other out. It's telling the story. Again, the story is not the boxing. All right. That's the thing. The story is Rocky, and Rocky's job is to survive the match till the end. Again, that's why we don't notice who won. So again, that's the issue. That's the problem that we're having, is that we're comparing Rocky to 2, 3, and 4, and it's not, and I'm telling you, it's not the same movie. It is not the same genre either. This is a drama. This is not an action movie. All the other Rocky movies except for 2. I don't even want to talk about 2 because 2 is not very good. 2 is Rocky. 2 is Rocky 1, but not as good. That's what it is.
You heard it here, folks. 2 weeks we're doing Rocky 2 so we could slug it out.
so we can rehash the same exact story other than Adrian being in a coma. Okay. But it's the same. Oh, yeah, and Rocky wins. Sorry, newsflash. Hey, the spoiler alert. But again, that's to me. That's
March is Rocky month, so we will not be doing another movie until we finish the next 3.
Oh my gosh, you're gonna kill me with watching the same. No, because I don't want to see roided up Sylvester Stallone, and then complaining about the Russians being roided up. Please, give me a break.
I'd tell you the one. I think the one thing you have to think about, modern day boxing, you do have CGI and you do have, other means of being able to hide punches easier as well. I think a lot of these punches in this fight were a little obviously fake. But like I said, this movie is 50 years old at this point. There's not like they had ways that they could hide punches as well. Back then too. And so
you make the whole movie about getting to the last round, and then you have the last round, and nothing happens. You give it 58 seconds. They spend 30 seconds of that just walking around each other. So it's like they throw a couple punches and then the bell rings. Like it seems very anticlimactic.
I think the whole boxing, the whole match was less than 10 minutes of the entire 2-hour movie.
I don't even think it was 10 minutes. I would say it was. Well, maybe it was 10 minutes.
It was. I think it was. I think when I looked at it,
I don't even have a problem with the entirety of the thing because that's just a common. Other than part 3, that's just a common thing in Rocky movies. They show the first couple rounds and they do a montage.
Yeah.
14, and then they show the last round. My problem solely lies with the last round because they bring it in. Here we are in the last round. And nothing happens. And I don't necessarily mean he's got a knock, but give me something. I mean, they walk around each other for 30 seconds. You do get the great line where it looks like these two have been in a war. So you do get that great line in there. But other than that, nothing really happens. They throw like a couple punches. Rocky throws like one punch or something, and then it's just over.
He was about to knock Apollo out before the bell. He was hitting him in the body shots. Apollo was about to go down. Don't say nothing was about to happen.
Well, then let him go. And then maybe he gets saved by the bell, but at least
that's what happened. He got saved by the bell. But looking at it. But you're talking about 14 rounds of boxing where 1, Apollo wasn't in shape, and 2, good God Almighty, if we're going to do punch counts, how many punches did Rocky take? So you're not going to have a fast and furious 15th round. You're going to have them slugging around, that's you're expecting Drago type of fight.
58 seconds.
It's a movie. So you're telling me in all the movies that we've had, now all of a sudden you're deciding to get rid of your disbelief in movies.
Yeah, a little bit. Give me at least a minute and a half. It just ends too abruptly for me.
Agree to disagree. Again, because you're going to have them slug around. If you're truly talking a boxing match where they beat the ever living crap out of each other, they are going to slug around. Go watch if you watch a real boxing match that if they ever go 15 rounds anymore, they're going to throw a punch, lean on each other, break it up.
They stopped doing 15 rounds in the 80s. They only do 12 rounds now.
Yeah, see, that's why it ain't real boxing. No one real men box 20 rounds against a black bear, But it's that's.
I want you to go. Well, actually, it might have been the 90s. Actually, I don't know. But yeah, I want you to go tell Tyson Fury. Well, he just retired, but go tell some of the heavyweights that ain't real boxing. I'm sure that'll go over.
Well, Tyson never went the distance, so I don't have to worry about that.
That's what my dad would always say. Was
12 rounds, not 15 rounds, but 12 rounds several times.
That's what Daddy would always say, was that it was annoying doing the whole pay-per-view for Tyson when you'd pay for the whole thing and then he'd just knock somebody out in the first round. What's the point of even watching it at that point?
His most entertaining fight is actually him losing to Buster Douglas.
Buster Douglas, yeah.
which is the $250 underdog thing or something like that. So, well, the fight is extremely well received by the sportcasters and the audience. Rocky calls out repeatedly for Adrian, who runs down as Polly distracts security to help her get to the ring. As Jurgens declares Creed the winner by virtue of a split decision, Rocky and Adrian embrace and profess their love for each other, not caring about the outcome of the fight.
You have a good transition here because now Adrian, who's been reluctant to go into Rocky's world of boxing, comes out of the locker room and she comes into the ring. You know, because I think they said that there were multiple tests of endings. The first original ending was the crowd taking Apollo and Rocky out on their shoulders. Then that didn't go very well. The next one was Rocky exiting the ring and then him and Adrian holding hands and then walking out. You know,
Which is on the poster.
Yeah, but again, that didn't fly. This I think is better. And okay, so Paulie gets 5 seconds of redeeming value by distracting the guard or whatever, trying to get in the ring, and then allows his sister to get in because, well, get married to Rocky so I can get more money and mooch off of him. But that to me again is here is the rise up of Rocky Balboa. He's got this woman who was I quote, I hear she's a retard and retards like the zoo. That's that's the way she was described early in the movie, but here they are, together. And again, it's not a boxing movie. Boxing is just part of the movie. And this shows his climb out of, Skid Row like his locker.
All right. Well, do you got anything to add before we go on to our rankings?
No, I don't think
this was your movie.
No, it was.
Funnily enough, even though it's me and Ernie going back and forth.
No, that's probably. I enjoy the discourse between you two.
One thing I wish we could have spent more time on just a little bit was Gazzo and his driver. I already mentioned the quote from the driver, but tell me you didn't think when Gazzo came in and gave him that $500 that wasn't going to be a bribe to take it to fix the fight. I would have put money, no pun intended, on that he wasn't trying to help Rocky, that he was going to tell Rocky, here's $500, now I need you to flop, but that goes back into the whole point of this movie that Apollo was saying, is that we're going to get the crowd behind him. And even this loan shark, gives him money for free, even though he couldn't break.
And I think, you try to make sense for a movie. I mean, what are you going to gain by getting him to flop? Nobody's betting on Rocky to win this fight. You're probably going to lose money if he does flop. I don't.
No, I just didn't know how corrupt they wanted to go with the boxing scene. The first scene. I think
there was some stuff with them, like maybe in the script, maybe him potentially like throwing the fight, like maybe I don't know if there was an idea thrown around about that or something, but I'm glad they didn't go any.
Me too.
That would have taken away from the movie.
But
even if it was something like, hey, I'm paid to throw this fight, and in the middle he's like, oh, I don't want to do this. He still doesn't take it away.
Yeah, I think it would have taken it away just because it. I mean, you get the win-win ending. You get Apollo being able to keep his heavyweight, champion, and then you get Rocky went the 15 rounds. Like he went to the end. And so I think the ending now is better than that. Like I said, it would definitely have taken away from it.
Oh, and one last thing that dates this movie is Rocky telling the little girl that she is a whore because she uses that language. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Which, come to find out, that same girl he ends up getting together with in Rocky Balboa.
No, he doesn't get together with her. They're just like friends. Don't come on now.
Adrian was dead.
I know that, but they don't get together. They're just. I mean, they're just friends in that movie.
They're just very good close friends.
Yes.
Really close friends. Really, really good friends.
Wink, wink.
Yeah, I mean nothing really weird. There's like one scene in that movie, but even it's not. I mean, it's just like him talking to her outside his hotel room the night before his flight. So it's about as weird as it gets. But I don't think I could have seen that one. But
I haven't. When I pulled this up on Pluto, I almost accidentally watched that movie, and then I was like, "Wait, that's not it."
it's
I
not
gotta go
bad.
back.
It's got one of the best quotes in it that you'll ever hear in any sports movie. But it is pretty ridiculous watching 56-year-old Sylvester Stallone as Rocky Balboa fighting the current heavyweights of the world.
Good
Oh,
Lord, man.
all
What
right.
was the other one that he did when he was older?
Oh, that was
Grudge?
the
Grudge match.
grudge match.
Oh,
That was a comedy though. That was like
Yeah,
because it was like a thing where he played Rocky, and then the other guy was Robert De Niro who played the Ernie. What was the boxing movie that he was in?
Raging Bull.
Yeah, so
I
they
can't
were
remember
like
what
the
the
two
character
big
was. Yeah.
boxing stars of that era. So they like, and so in the movie they're like older, but they never pay. I don't know. It's been a while since I've seen it. That one's a comedy. It's pretty funny.
yeah. It's a pretty good movie.
Time to move on to rankings. Um, I guess I'll go first, unless one of you would like to go first.
Nah, you
No,
go.
y'all go ahead.
Well, like I said, obviously this franchise means a lot to me. I've seen these movies a lot. There was actually in high school. This is going to be the most pathetic self brag I've ever done in my life. But in high school, there was a trivia app. It wasn't Trivia Crack. I can't remember what the app was called, but it was everybody in my school was playing it. And they did different categories, and you could compete. And you know, if you were really good, you would be like number 1 in Alabama, number 1 in the world in that category. And I was like number 1 in the world on that app in like Rocky Trivia at one point. So there's my very pathetic, humble self brag. But I mean, this franchise did mean a lot to me. That being said, you know, the first one, you know, as a kid, it just wasn't my favorite, and as an adult, it's still not my favorite. And I know it's not fair to hold it up to the rest of the franchise because, like Ernie said, it is a completely different movie. It's not the same as the rest of the movies, but at the same time, it's still part of the franchise. And I think when you look at it, you know, everything that people remember about Rocky movies, Eye of the Tiger, Yo Adrian, I Did It, you know, the songs, the montages, Beating Dry. I mean, everything comes from the movies that come after this. And you know, the other movies are they're just more fun, and this one it's still a good movie, and I understand that. And as a Rocky fan, I can't give it, you know, I still have to give it a good score. But you know, it got a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't think it's that good of a movie. So, and like I said, I still feel like it's a little bit dated 50 years later. I don't think it quite holds up as well as it did when it came out in 1976. But at the same time, as I said, it's a Rocky movie. I can't give it too bad, so I'm going to give it an 8.
Go ahead, Ferg.
You know, this is kind of ironic. I think this and Moonstruck, both Academy Award winning movies, and we're all like, well, it's not as good as what people think it is. It is like I've said earlier, it is different than the rest of the Rocky franchise. Creed is probably the closest thing to Rocky, but it has again more boxing in it too.
Far better movie.
Yeah,
Far better movie.
yeah, I agree. You know, it is incredibly slow, and like I said, the debate in my head has been between a good cinema movie and one that I enjoy to watch. There are times where I didn't enjoy watching this at all, but there are times where like it was awesome. But I'm going to give it a 7.5.
So, this is the second time that I've seen this movie. I don't know. I personally, I really enjoy it, which I really do like an underdog. You know, rags to riches type of movie. You know, it just I've always really enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong, this movie was kind of slow, a lot slower than what it probably should have been. And I understand that you have to build Rocky's backstory and things like that, but you know, maybe have him in 2 or 3 different fights. Maybe have him in, add a little bit of just a little bit more action into the first hour of the movie, and to just to get it going a little bit faster, just to catch my attention quicker. Uh, but overall, I still really did enjoy it. I really did enjoy some of the characters, and uh, I will most likely end up watching this at some point again. So I think I'm gonna give it I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
All right, so that's an 8 for me, an 8 from Dakota, and a 7.5 for Ernie, which averages out to a 23.
That's not why. That's not it.
It totals to a 23.5. It averages out to a 7.83 repeating. Ernie, where does that put us on our rankings list?
That ties it with Major League and Con Air at 24. So it's below New Jack City and Lost Boys, above The Mask of Zorro. So, that proves yet again that Blade would beat everybody up in these movies. So, Nino Brown would have said, "Come on to New York and fight me."
I would hope the immortal vampire with his swords and guns would probably be a pretty good match for a random boxer.
He doesn't need swords and guns to do that.
But, all right, so 24 is that what you said?
Yeah, it's tied for 24th.
24th on our rankings list. If you would like to see our full list, you can go to our website. It's podpage.com/classicblockbusters. That's podpage.com/classicblockbusters. We have our full rankings on there, as well as all the episodes and some more stuff. You can find us on Facebook, Blockbusters, the Classic Movie Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube now. Ernie, it is your pick next week. What are we be watching?
Oh, here we go. Get ready, and we are going to go with 1984's Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai and the Eighth Dimension. You are welcome to a cult classic movie this week with Peter Weller, RoboCop, John Lithgow, and this is John Lithgow at one of his funniest moments too. So enjoy. I think y'all will like it.
I've never seen this movie.
I know.
I've never heard of this movie.
I know. That's why
it tells you it streams on Freevee. That tells you how cheap Ferg is.
No, it's on Prime Video, I thought.
On Pluto TV.
Oh.
Which is where I watched Rocky. All right, so the adventures of whatever it was that
Buckaroo Banzai. Hey, you wanted a comic book movie. Here we go.
When did I say I wanted a comic book movie?
Yeah, you want to hear a comic book hero movie. That's what this is.
That was Dakota. That was not me. Pre-2000s is not the time to watch any comic book movie. I promise you that, unless it's Blade.
Let me put it this way. I am confident y'all will enjoy the movie. I'm not confident it'll have a high score, but I'm confident that you will enjoy the movie.
All right, so hold on. So if you're that confident, let's make a bet. So what if we don't?
Oh, not one. I don't make bets because I lose every single one of the bets I've ever make. So I don't bet. That's like my NCAA tournament bracket will probably be busted in the first 2 days. So no, I don't make bets.
Who did you pick to win your bracket?
Let's see. I got 2. One is Texas Tech, and the other one is University of Houston.
Texas Tech.
Yep.
2 Texas teams. Leave it to the tech guy from Texas.
Well, if you know me, I would not pick Texas. No, because Texas A&M's my team, and I know they're going to choke. So, it is what it is.
All right, you heard it there. The adventures of, what was it again?
Buckaroo Banzai and the Eighth Dimension.
Well, hold on. This says Cross the Eighth Dimension. So you don't even know.
Cross the Eighth Dimension. Well, I just usually say Buckaroo Banzai. I usually don't say the whole entire title. I just usually say Buckaroo Banzai.
All right, so the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. What now?
Buckaroo Banzai.
Cross the Eighth Dimension.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing next week. All right,
that's gonna be one, folks.
It'll be better than. I will make this bet. It'll be higher than Lost in America.
It's gonna be one, folks. Says the dude that picked Lost in America.
I will make this bold prediction. It will not be last on our list. I feel extremely confident in that.
How far do we have to? How far do we have to rank it? Low do we have to rank it for it to be last?
We have to give them that
2.75.
once.
I think it'll be above Jumanji and Moonstruck.
It's not a
I
high
think
bar.
it might even be above Princess Bride.
Yeah, that's not a high bar either. All right, so the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. That'll be our movie next week. Anything else to add before we wrap it up?
Nah, man. Nino Brown, heavyweight champion of the world. And then we'll see you. Yep, and then we'll see you at the movies after that.